Okay, so I'm part of CapGemini. I'm working in one of the market units. We have several market units, and I'm a little going abroad the market unit, really working on all what is related to communication. So I always try to say how I should do the presentation. I make it a little technical. I will not speak about some of the items, so don't worry, Sebastian. Try to do the middle of everything. So basically, let's start first. Short presentation, CapGemini, 190,000 people. We are present in a lot of countries, 38 or 40 now, increasingly. We have a different activity which are going from the consulting to nearly all the outsourcing and so on. We do the outsourcing of a lot of big groups and so on. We do a lot of consultancy and so on. And we keep something, it's the partnership. So we have a lot of partners. We are still an integrator by itself, and we try to remain as an integrator. So we use a lot. With regard to all activities around the communication, we have around more than 5,000 people working on it. I would say even it's 8,000 people now. We have around 600 customers, which are telco operators, but they are also big utility groups and so on, because the communication is everywhere. And that's what we see. And I will try to present you really this movement towards the concept of MVNO, CPaaS, and so on. You believe an MVNO is just an operator, but you can see that the model of the MVNO is going very well with the big groups and so on. The vision, basically, I would say, if I see the situation, I will try to make a show step by step about the evolution of the communication. Today, the communication is going to the all IP. In most of the countries, and I would say most of the operators, most of the MVNO, now they are doing the switch to VoLTE, voice over Wi-Fi, voice over LTE. It's something which is coming, and it's really a big movement that we see everywhere. And basically, I would say, on top of those, we can start to see a few services. And the story of saying where we were going to IMS, it will simplify and it will increase the number of services and so on. Personally, I've never seen it. I've always seen a complexity to do new services and so on. Anyhow, for some of the operators in France, we have been developing ourselves some services like multi-number, which was quite a big success. It was a new way to do it, because introducing a service in certain operators is quite complex sometimes. But we managed to do a service in few months, and a service that is used by a lot of users, a lot of enterprise, because it's quite interesting to have several numbers on your smartphone, even if you have only one smartphone, instead of having 3 or 4 smartphones in your pocket, like I have. But I should have used this service. The concept of course, of VoLTE, and of course the evolution also that we start to see. I mean, video is coming everywhere, and the concept of having the video sharing, we start to speak about video voicemail, we speak a lot of services around it, and the concept also to be able to see that the other party and so on is able to do video, which is relevant, because if you remember a long time ago, I mean, the video was there, but the problem is that it fails because most of the people were trying to do a video call and it was failing. You try it several times, but after that you never use it. It's still continuing. Now we are going now to the messaging over IP. I mean, with voice over Wi-Fi, we start to see more and more messaging over IP, with all the concept of having group chats with, I mean, some of the people, I will never speak about the RCS, but at least there are features that are quite relevant. I mean, it's still interesting to have a group for chatting. I mean, you use it, I guess, a lot with Skype and so on, but you can have the concept of content sharing and so on. And you will see later on, I will give you cases where we have content sharing, but in another situation. I mean, we have concept also of pre-call, post-call, where you can announce the call you want to do. And if you relate it, for example, with bots and so on, you can have nice features where I want to make a call, I use my bot saying, give me a presentation of what I want to do and so on, and you present to the other one. You can use both on the other one. And I mean, the concept of not dialing anything and having everything done by voice is something that we start to see. We do presentation, we do prototype for operators, and we start to see a very big attraction about it. Still, it's continuing. One item that I would say my friend Sebastian likes is when we speak about the multi-device, which is coming. But the concept of multi-device, no, but I will not tell what we were saying yesterday. The concept of the I mean, the concept is because you want to be reachable everywhere. And basically, you have a mobile. But if you can use your tablet when you are coming here, I mean, you are connecting to the Wi-Fi. Even if your tablet doesn't have any SIM card, you want to do your call with your tablet. Perhaps you want to even to split the call. You could use your smartphone for doing the voice and using the video on your tablet. Because if you have a video on your smartphone, to be honest, I don't see how I will do this all the time. So perhaps I have my tablet, my PC in front of me, doing the video there and still speaking with my smartphone. So this is something coming, and a lot of scenarios where you do this video and the multi-device in an appropriate way, a sort of multi-device where we will see in the enterprise world where, you know, those private networks where you see someone in the trains that have 3-4 smartphones. Perhaps it's very interesting for him to have only one smartphone and to have a lot of equipment. So multi-device is something coming, we see it. Then we have also the evolution to the real time coming, that WebRTC has allowed also to have communication inside the apps. Any apps can introduce communication. We have seen a lot of speech yesterday about it and so on. Web conferencing, I mean, you don't need to have always Skype because you can do very nicely. When we speak with my friends from Greg, we have conference where we use VoLTE and so on. So very interesting because you just need to have a Chrome and you just need to do, and it's really something which is very easy and where we have a really good quality of experience with it. And then the new things which is coming, there are a lot of private networks. You have a lot of big groups which are using operators today. And those big groups, they start to think about, when I'm using an operator, the problem of the operator is that he's giving me the same services as he's giving to everyone. I'm using his network, and I have the same quality as everyone, and so on. So big groups they need to have a sort of reflection, and a lot of groups have a reflection of having their own network dedicated to what they want to use because they want to put innovation. They want to have dedicated services for what they use. And one of the things that we start to see with the LTE is you can use an LTE private now. So you start to have bandwidth where company can use LTE and have their own communication services on top of it. First, you know, there is the concept of the Tetra, the P25, the GSM-R for the train, or the DECT. I mean, look at DECT. Does someone still use DECT? I mean, if you can use LTE or private LTE, have your communication, then you can do multimedia and a lot of more other things. And we start to see this movement towards the LTE private and having all the replacement of this push-to-talk and so on to have more what we call push-to-multimedia and so on. A lot of attractions because the concept of the private and the push-to-multimedia is that everything is based on a smartphone. You don't need to have any more those specific equipment and so on. You use your smartphone, and it does everything that you can do today with the police using these things to speak. And I will show you use cases that we are starting to discuss with different organizations. And of course, the relevance of all this is that you open the opening of the API, because most of the companies we are working with and we are starting to discuss about having their own private networks and so on, one of the reasons why they want to have their own private network is because they have their own communication services. I mean, if you speak about communication services in an hospital, it's just not only to speak. It's a lot of communication between an ambulance and experts and the doctors and all the things. And those are related services that they cannot ask to an operator, because an operator is very straight. I mean, it does only a call forwarding, it does only a few services which are standardized. So this is something we see a lot of areas where big groups are starting to think. I mean, we are working with big groups where basically they have their own factories, communication in a private network, and they will use the operator, so they will use the LTE private for doing this, and then they use the operator for doing the basic things. And that's really the movement that we see. Personally, we are answering 6, 7 RFP at the moment. Around it, we are supporting a lot of big groups inside this movement towards us becoming nearly an MVNO, but for its own business. We are even thinking about it for ourselves, because we are present in 38 countries. Why not having our own communication services? So, if I take a case, if I take basically the concept of the operator, basically, today, these VoLTE, voice over Wi-Fi, they have created few services. If you see the services, they are just the services that you had before. Presentation of a number, I don't want to present my number, want to do a diversion, and so on. Quite services that are not used by anyone. Are they very attractive to do this? I was in an operator, I mean, the call diversion was only used by 3%. A three-party call was used 0.1%. So you have a set of services that no one wants. If I'm speaking about a presentation, if I can have, like I was saying, instead of presenting a number, if I can present to the user the reason of my call, my identity, detailed identity, press a video showing what the reason and so on, asking him, can you take the call? Because very often you are in a meeting, you receive a call, should I take it, should I not take it? Let's say my wife is calling me because my child is sick. She can tell me a message saying, take the phone because I need to speak to you, we have an urgency and so on. That's really the concept where instead of just presenting my number or not presenting my number, I present the reason of my call. If I take the case of the diversion, basically, I mean diversion, I divert to a C number or I divert to if I'm busy and so on. That's the only thing I can do. To be honest, and the complexity to do a diversion. If you use a smartphone, every smartphone has its own way to do a diversion. If I had perhaps some bots that could do the work for me, perhaps it could be more used. But the concept of diversion is that if you can map it into a reachable service, so basically it's based on my presence, it's based on my calendar, it's based on a lot of capabilities, then I give really a more value on it. If I associated it also with bots, and we were speaking with Karel about the voicemail and so on, becoming more a call assistant and so on, that's really a more attractive thing. And I could also have a diversion based on the location, because if I'm at work, I want to divert perhaps automatically towards a dedicated person, but if I'm home, I don't want to divert to this person, I want perhaps to divert to my wife or to whatever, okay? So there is a lot of innovation there, and to be honest, an operator is not ready to do it, because then it will cost millions, it will cost 1 year of work, so, and you understand why the big groups and so on, they are thinking about doing themselves, because they want to have this agility to do it, and they want to have the agility to do it based on what they want. We are speaking with big groups where they want to have a communication between nuclear powers. So, I mean, to be honest, it's not a diversion like we are thinking. If I'm speaking about the conference, and I think there were a presentation about it, I mean the three-party call. I mean, have you tried to do a three-party call with the smartphones? I mean, it's annoying. No one does it. You do it once, and after that you stop. And even worse, if you change a smartphone, then you don't understand anymore how you do your... Because every smartphone has its own way to do a three-party call. Now when I'm speaking about web conferencing, if I can even add bots and so on top of it, that's really where we see the groups coming. And I mean, when an operator sells to a group his service, he sells basically a third party. He doesn't sell any more other services. So again, and of course, the concept of any device, which I will not explain more because the concept is really being reachable everywhere at any time, and I decide really which device I want to use. And like I say, I could use several devices during the same call. And of course, a lot of other services. You can speak about spam and so on. I mean, how many calls do you receive per day, which are just spams and so on? I mean, in France, we receive every day a call from the other operators trying to propose you something. So I would like to be rid of it. And I would like to decide it myself and so on. The voicemail, I think Karel presented, I mean, the concept of voicemail where I just depose a message. If I could use this voicemail saying, using bots and so on, saying, give me how many messages I have received, and the voicemail will tell me you have received a message from your mom, you have received a message from your wife, and you could say to him, call my wife, call my message. You have someone proposing, for example, an appointment, and you could say to the voicemail, please initiate the call with this guy or put it in my calendar and so on. Use your voicemail really as a device that will help you, not only a device that loads a message. I mean, I have around 20 messages on my voicemail. I've never read them. And I'm working with an operator in France where we discovered that on the fixed side, it's even worse. They discover that they have around 7 million users, but it's only few SPS because no one reads his voicemail. Have you read your voicemail when you are on the fixed side? I mean, I've never done it, personally. So I have a big list of, I guess, messages on top of it, but no problem about it. And then, of course, all these social that you could do. You could create a lot of services. I have given basic one, but create a lot of assets. And the concept by itself, let the third parties propose the services, because the innovation doesn't come internally inside the groups. It will come externally. I mean, we have seen a lot of ideas about people. I mean, let the people thinking about what they can propose to you, because I'm meeting a lot of, insurance. I'm speaking with Airbus. I'm speaking with car auto. I mean, they don't know what they do. And you discuss with them, and you say, why don't you do this, and so on. And they say, oh, we have not thought about it. So basically, let the other thinking and trying to propose you innovation. The things we see also is the evolution, like I was saying too, in the private. Today, it's a lot of private networks, around 6,000 private networks. They are called P25, they are called PMR, they are called GSMR, they are called DEX services, they are called... And the thing is that if you associate it, the movement of those private, it's because they are totally private. So basically, it's only few companies that own this business. If you start to see the movement which is using LTE, first of all, we will not speak about push-to-talk, but we will speak more about pushing information. And if you are associated with captors and so on, we see a lot more business cases, because let's say depending on what a sensor is detecting, you can take a business logic to say, I want to push information to certain people, I want to create a group of people and so on. And this is really what we see today. And there are certain events in France, unfortunately, that has happened 1 year ago, So when you imagine that during this event, the police was using WhatsApp to communicate because the network was down, you could say, I guess the security was not there. And they were really communicating for video and so on with very bad quality. So imagine all the services you could do, because you have providers of LTE network, you come with you open just a small machine, create an LTE and create a group of people that can communicate to each other. And based on captors, based on drones, based on video machines. You can create a lot of business cases around this. And that's what a lot of RFP, at least in France, we have around 10 RFPs ongoing inside this business. I speak about some of my partners. I mean, we are developing a lot of use cases using Telestack, world sensing, using also small startups around boats and so on. And of course, we are also using some of the big groups that we are supporting, I mean, like codec and so on, experts. One of the cases I could have given, I have around 25 use cases, and I think my goal is to reach around 80 use cases because I have a lot of ideas. I'm listening to what happened. This one was very important because, you know, it's a lot of fires in France. And there was an announcement during one of the, I think it was, they were saying that the biggest problem of this fire guy is that he doesn't see that he's burning because he is very stressed, he's inside the action. And how can you support it? And basically, if you imagine that you have a sensor that is checking its heartbeat, or which is checking you put few captors that detect how warm it is around him and so on, you could start to say, okay, there is an alerting phase, and I will need to trigger perhaps all the fireman people which are around him and say to those people, your colleague is in a bad situation. And that was really the problem that they were saying. Most of the firemen, I mean, a lot of people are burning because they are not aware that they are burning. They are totally inside the situation. It's a very stressing situation. So if you can help them with few sensors and a business logic that will help them to automatically initiate a sort of dispatching. And of course, to make it better, you will say, I will also have the location, of course, because I know where he's guy, so I will really stress the people around him, go to this place and so on. Okay? And again, you can use drone in that case to also. So imagine all those use cases that you can develop around it, because sensors, they provide APIs. You can have, based on the API, develop a business logic to do all this. Same thing about a park. Imagine what you can do a park. I mean, the park, it's informing the people that they don't need to go to this attraction because that's just crash. Imagine the things that you can do with video, that you can say, go to this place, initiate the video, are part of the group. They will say, don't take this part because it's crowded and so on, and you can see the situation. It's about also the garbage collection, because imagine in a park, very often the garbage are fully planned because the guy is just doing his turn, but he doesn't know where to go. And most of the time, if you can have sensors that will inform the people which are cleaning, go to this place because this garbage is full, and tell to him via certain business logic about how to go to this place very quickly, you can make a lot of situations. So we speak about communication in a general way that you can put it everywhere. Okay, and the lost child is one of the other cases. So we are working with some parts about it. When speaking after that about the deployment model, what we see today is the operator situation where you have some packet core, multimedia core, where you have a set of services, and flexible. You buy this or you don't buy it. If you buy it, you just get this. Then you start to see a movement where certain groups are using the infrastructure of the operator, but then they want to be creating their own services on top of it. It's a sort of MVNO model where at least you create your own services and you can create your innovation. And then the last one that we start to see more and more, which is dedicated to groups or so on, is that you are just using the radio part of the operator, the access, and then you develop your own situation. You can develop your own. It's a full MVNO model, I would say. And a lot of groups are starting to have this. And they can have it multi-tenant because they can develop it for a lot of groups. Look at the IT people of a big group. They can develop all the communication of the group, but they can also, in that case, be the IT of other groups. So we start to see more and more the movement of it. And you can go that if you have your own Wi-Fi, then you have also basically you are becoming more and more independent from the operators. Around the architecture, basically, going to a CPaaS model, what we see as a CPaaS is that you have a core network where you interconnect all the things. On top of it, you have a lot of, I would say, functionalities. Billing, media, location, all those services are things that you want. When I'm speaking about voice services, it's really any type of service. And then, of course, what is relevant for me is that they are open. So the voice service is not a set that I deliver. It's a set that will be improved by all the innovation around it. And if I take it now detail, it's just a set of components that exist today that you make available to the outside. And basically, when we speak about VAS services, that's where, if I'm speaking about a group, of course, a group will have a sort of Centrex, a unified communication group. But then you can use outside people to develop additional services dedicated to services for the company. If I'm speaking about health, hospital, they have dedicated services related to IoT and so on, and that's really what you want to see. And this is really the architecture that makes available that you can handle inside a group or inside small operators, the agility to open all this situation to innovation. If I take the case that we see now related to MVNO, to big groups, basically big groups will have this platform. They will develop their own communication services, unified, even including also what I was telling to the unified team communication. I'm working with Airbus, I'm working, and when we work with those companies, I mean, the communication is very important, but you need also the communication if there is a problem in the factory, if there is a problem somewhere, to generate this information based on IoT information that you find inside the plane. So basically, a plane can provide a lot of information. And that's really what we see as a CPaaS architecture for XNO and utility groups. And to finalize, our ecosystem, just for information, is as you see, we are just an integrator. And we receive companies, we try to include them in our lab because we have currently in our office, we have a voice over Wi-Fi lab, because it was a way also to show that we can have today we have around 30 partners inside our lab, and they are all interconnected, nearly. And if you can see, we try to be independent, so for each item we have at least 2 partners. And that's all related to I could have told you around 30 use cases. I tried to select some of them, but the most important message is that when we speak about communication, it's not only the telco communication, it's a lot of communication in groups related to a lot of things. So really, you have to think like you were saying, I mean, think about what you can do in a group, and that's what we do with our partner, with our big utility groups. We receive them, we brainstorm to them, and sometimes you come with ideas that they have not thought. And they were not believing it was feasible. That's all.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Patrice. So, Uni, if you could come on down and get yourself set up, and while you're getting yourself disconnected, Patrice, do we have any questions? We'll mostly take one quick question while we do the swap over.
Hi, Patrice. What do you think about things like Multifier and CBRS for private wireless?
I've not thought about it. What do you think about it?
Potentially, well, for people here, I'll talk about it later, but there's going to be more either unlicensed or shared spectrum for LTE, and some companies will be able to deploy their own networks. Others will need either integrator or outsourcers.
The biggest problem that we are facing at the moment, of course, it's a presentation. It's more the private LTE, because you need to have those bandwidths. They are not yet decided. They are not the same in each country and so on. But it's starting, because there are a lot of frequencies that are made available, and a lot of groups, they have the priority to use it. And that we do step by step. After that, it's really the same method that as was explained by Groupama. It's basically each company has its own communication, and you need to think about what is a communication in a company. When I'm speaking with Airbus, a communication is also having the information from the planes. So they have captors in the plane where they can receive all the information and create a communication issue about it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Patrice.
Okay, thank you.